Mac, in your day-to-day life, what compliment do you think you are given the most?
What compliment to huh? It's a good question. That is a great question. I don't know if it's like day to day that I receive the compliment.
Not day-to-day, but which one do you get the most?
I would say that the most frequent like compliment or like things someone says or notices about me is like, wow, like here, like everyone like seems to like you, sort of thing, like a TJ from Recess. Like you're very easy to get along with, very easy to work with.
People just walk up to you and they say, "You're a lot like TJ from Recess."
I'd be like the people, if it's day to day, it's like the people I work with and see all the time. I think I'm generally regarded as someone that's easy to get along with, easy to work with. So that's probably that's the only thing that really comes to mind. And that's what I make an effort to do that as well. Obviously, it's not easy to do, I don't think,
May I
Sometimes
tell you one that
sometimes you got to bite your tongue when you don't want to, but I'm good at it. I'm good at that. Goo.
one second, may I tell you one that people have told me about you?
Okay.
Infectious smile.
All right. I'll take that. Yeah, you know what?
Mhm.
So every once in a while, I get a compliment on my laugh. Every once in a while, but
Yeah.
I'll take those two things: smile, laugh, that sort of thing.
Or
I like
that you have a wheezy and emphysema-like laugh that annoys half the
that. It
people on
depends
YouTube.
how hard I'm laughing.
Yeah.
The laughs range all over the place.
Mhm.
Goo.
Yes,
On a
Mac?
day to day basis,
Yeah.
what sort of compliment do you get?
I get told quite often that I look tired.
And you're taking this as a compliment.
I'd rather not think of it the other way, I
Okay.
guess.
All right. Sure. Sure.
It's also all I get, so
I would say people say about you to me, what the fuck is up with him?
and you know
That's
what?
that's the common reaction I get about you.
Leave them guessing, baby.
One, goo, three, yeah! Goo. Jaws 3. Goo. King of Queens. Goo. Meryl Streep. Entertainment.
I'm Goo.
And I am Mac.
And we are the Mac and Goo program. We bring you friendship.
And today we're gonna work on two things. I'm gonna try to be less likable, and you're gonna try to be less sleepy. Those are our New Year's goals for
I'm glad that
2024.
you said be less weird because I don't think I could have done that.
No,
But also, I'll
that's
toss
true.
this out you. I can't be any less sleepy because I am just sleepy.
Hashtag sleepy boys.
Yeah.
Goo and the
Mhm.
folks at home. Nice little topic we teased the other day here. We're going to be doing the top 20 movie villains of the 2000s. Now, if you're asking, what are the 2000s? Well, 2000,
There we go.
2001,
Yeah.
2002, 2003, 2004,
Okay, you can stop. It's
2005.
00 through 09. And that is the first thing
2010 doesn't count.
it's the first thing that you need to decide on whenever you're doing a decade. Are you starting with the 0 to 9 or are you an insane person 1 to 0?
Yeah, you start with the 0 because you got to count
Yes.
up to 1, and then the 10, aka the 0, starts the new decade again.
Right. No, we agree upon this.
Yeah, I know. We've long agreed on this. That was a big debate in Boston sports radio many moons ago, but it clearly starts with the 0.
Yes, and we stumbled upon this topic when discussing you were talking about the new Mean Girls, and you were
Right.
like, "Hey,
Yep.
Regina George, one of the best villains." And I'm like, "Well, let's look at a decade." And we looked at this decade, and we thought maybe we do a top 10, but that was too easy.
Yeah, a cursory, is that the word I'm looking? Cursory? I don't
Tertiary.
know. Well, that's definitely not it. Um, an initial search reveals many deserving villains. So we said, fuck a top 10, we'll do a top 20.
I did off of the top of my head. I sent Mac 10 straight GIFs of villains from the aughts, and he's like, I guess we'll just do 20.
Yeah, I guess 20 is doable. And then I did reach a point when I had a list of around 20. I'm like, fuck, it's starting to get a little thin. But then I ended up with a list of 31, as did you.
I did 31 as well, and one of mine is drugs.
And one of them
Don't
is
do
drugs.
drugs.
Yeah.
Don't do drugs, guys.
That's always the message we send here at the Mac and Goo program. Goo,
Yes.
the only qualification we have, again, is that the movie came out between January 1st, 2000, December 31st, 2009. Everything else is on the table. No other rules, no other caveats.
Well, I'll throw one more rule at you is
Oh.
that if this villain is in multiple movies and their best movie is outside of the decade, that will hurt them.
Okay, fair enough. There's only really a couple, I guess, that applies to, but fair enough.
Am I
I
allowed to say their name?
I felt like if the character was played in that range, I'm gonna give him some credit for some of the stuff that wasn't in that range.
I'm not
but
gonna.
whatever.
I'm not
really
gonna do
doesn't
that.
matter. Like I said, for some reason we both made lists of 31. I don't know how the fuck that happened.
We were
And
going to do 25.
Yeah, it started at 25, and then I noticed I left off a couple that you had, so I had to put that on there. And the next thing you know, I had 31, you had 31. In total, Goo, 42 villains received votes for this list.
Wow.
So we're gonna have an honorable mention 22 deep. That'll be real fun to go through. And of our cumulative list of 20, the Mac and Goo official list of 20, 18 out of the 20 were featured on both of our lists. So there's only 2 on here that weren't featured on one of our lists. One for me, one for you.
And since Mac is the bigger villain on this podcast, he'll be doing the countdown here. He did the math.
I did.
So without further ado, I just played the sounder, not on YouTube because we would have gotten flagged. But, Mac, what is Mac and Goo's top 20 villains, movie villains, specific to movies of the 2000s?
Kicking off Mac and Goo's top 20 movie villains of the 2000s. We have a tie, Goo. We have a tie right off the top. Gotta love to see that. I'll go with the one that was left off one list.
And this is a tie at 19, correct?
No, this
so
is a
19
tie
and
at
20.
20. There's a tie at 20. So then
No, because you don't have 19 on the list. I'm
if
glad
you
that we're
count-
having this argument already.
Yeah, if you count from 1 up, it would be technically tied at 19.
We count from 1 up.
Well, on this list, we're
1,
counting from 20
2,
down.
3. Yeah, but you go with the lower number. It's tied
Yes.
at 19.
Yes. Well, either way, really doesn't.
This is why you're the villain, because you're a fucking madman.
Goo!
Yes.
Agent Smith, played by Hugo Weaving in The Matrix, both in Reloaded and Revolutions that came out in 2003. He also, of course, was in the OG in 1999.
Yes.
You did not have this on your list. I had him 13th.
I do count against it that the 99 movie's not on here. Obviously, the cool action scene is in the second one, but that does not make you a great villain having a great action scene.
I'd argue he's probably better in the second movie. I would argue the first movie's better. I think he's better in the second movie. He's
Okay.
scarier in the second movie as well. Third movie is just we don't even really need to talk about. I basically did my list, Goo. I started off and tried to do all the iconic villains. You know, an image of this person would invoke the movie or the time or the era. And then from there, I did some personal favorites. So the iconic ones sort of ran out right when I got to Agent Smith. I had him again 13. So I think there's a good dozen to 15 of those iconic style villains. I just feel like Agent Smith for sure defines 2000 villains.
He's very good. It's just he was number 32 for me.
Okay, good enough. Yeah. And if you don't know how we did the math here, if someone got left off the list, they got a 32. Goo tied at number 19 or 20, whatever you want to call it. Papa Doc / the Free World from 8 Mile. Papa
Yes.
Doc played by Anthony Mackie. Fuck the Free World 313.
313.
Love that. Love that, Goo. That movie defined really Eminem in that movie defines our age group.
If
That
you
movie came
look
out when we were 13.
At our 8th grade yearbook, everyone's favorite song was either 8 Mile or Lose Yourself. Everyone's favorite movie was 8 Mile. And one kid, when he grew up, wanted to be a mountain. That was Adam Clark.
Also, you have to consider, I would say outside of the like iconic villain thing, the second thing I considered is how much I hated this person while watching said movie.
Yeah. Yes.
And in 8 Mile, you hate the free world. You hate Papa Doc. He's the leader of that group.
But
that
do
we're
you
going up
hate the
against.
free world as much as Papa Doc or the other way around? I think I hate the free world more than Papa Doc.
I agree. I agree with you. And include Wink in it, who kind of floated in between
Yeah.
and obviously banged Jimmy Rabbit's girlfriend there.
Yeah.
That was, you could almost nominate him over Papa Doc, but some representation of the bad people from 8 Mile is clearly needed on our list here.
Look at his boots. They're about to grow roots. That has nothing to do with Papa Doc. It just popped into my mind.
Goo!
Yeah.
Coming in at number 18. This is the one that you had on your list. I did not have on mine, and I'll defend myself in a second. This is Bill, played by David Carradine in the Kill Bill movies, 2 movies that came out in the 2000s.
Yeah, I would even say for being a titular character, he's not. So if he was a more memorable villain, because I think of Uma Thurman, I think of Lucy Liu, I think of other stuff when it comes to this movie, but David Carradine's pretty good, isn't it?
Listen, this is a blind spot for me. These are the only. No, I haven't seen Jackie Brown either. The 3 Tarantino movies I haven't seen are Jackie Brown and the Kill Bill movies. I missed the Kill Bill movies when they came out. Then I felt a bit jaded and just have never gone back. And it's one of those things like, now I get it. I get what it's about. I don't need to go see it. So just simply not on my list. An omission and a purposeful one. You had him 12th on your list. So again, I think you sort of had a same idea where there was like a dozen, maybe 15 iconic types, and then we got into flavors there.
Yes.
You coming in at number 17, Derek Huff, played by Adam Scott in Step Brothers, 2008.
Yeah, he was in a handful of comedic villains that really stand out, but I'm not sure if he is as scene stealing as some of the other ones.
Yeah, I grouped my villains also by like type of movie, and I think I had 4 or 5 comedic ones, but 2 head and shoulders above the rest, and he was number 2 for me on that list. I guess he was number 3. He's probably number 3. No,
He might have been number 4 in the comedic villains for me.
I think he was 2 or 3 for me, but you also ranked the comedic villains a little higher than I did. Adam Scott as Derek Huff absolutely defines like punchable face, punchable character in a movie. And he's like Step Brothers is my favorite comedy of all time. I've seen that movie 1,000 times. I don't think I'll ever see a movie as many times as I've seen Step Brothers already. He is the perfect foil in that movie because it needs that, once they team up, they need to team up against someone, and him being like that secondary villain in it. And it works so well.
But also it is so against type that it makes it that much better. Like the fact that they said, we want Adam Scott to play this character. And
this is before Parks and Rec though.
I know that, but it's around the time of Party Down. It's after a couple other things. And, he's not the biggest guy, but he's this big asshole who's, teasing these 2 other guys that are way bigger than him.
You actually bring up a pretty good point. I would love to hear someone's take that watched Parks and Rec before they ever saw Step Brothers. And I'm not sure. There's probably a good crossover there, so I'm not sure how many people that would even include. But you definitely would view that performance differently through that lens, because I never thought of him as like the Goody Two-Shoes character until Ben Wyatt. So you remember him as Griff in Boy Meets World.
I know him as Griff from Boy Meets World. I'm sorry. The first time I saw him, he was Guitar Guy in season 2.
So I actually don't think this was like breaking the mold at the time. Now, obviously, since he doesn't play these characters anymore, but he's great at playing a son of a bitch.
Absolutely.
Coming in at number 16, Goo, Magneto, played by Ian McKellen, and we'll give him credit for the first movie, X-Men in 2000.
Yeah, no, I think that he is early on one of the best villains that we've seen. Great portrayal. But what I hold against him now is I think Fassbender is better.
I agree with you. I will say, however, though, him and Patrick Stewart playing the roles they did in a comic book movie sort of legitimized.
I agree.
Great theatrical beings to play these types of roles, because before, and that's why X-Men 2000, even though
Shakespearean actors, if you will,
that's like that movie does not hold up well at all, but his performance does, and that's important. And you go back and watch that movie, you're like, oh, this was meaningful. And so I think you have to give Ian McKellen credit. And now there were a couple comic book movies that were somewhat successful before him, but X-Men in 2000 was really the first one that kicked off what we've seen now 24 years later. So I think a big driving force behind that was Ian McKellen's Magneto.
Agreed.
Q, coming in at number 15, we had Syndrome, aka Buddy Pine, voiced by Jason Lee in 2004's The Incredibles.
Jason Lee does not get enough credit for the voiceover work that he does in this movie.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that.
This character is, it's a pretty run-of-the-mill origin story for a bad guy, but he plays it so fun and he gives it so much energy.
Yeah, see, sleepy boy brains on me here. What's the word? I guess revenge is kind of what it's not the word I'm looking for, but the revenge you can hear in his voice or what he's going for, the pain
Yeah.
from what happened to him as a kid is so apparent in the voice work. And it's and again, Jason Lee, that's another guy that like we typically see him playing not like a villainous type of character. And to like see him or think of him voicing this character is crazy. And Syndrome is actually at 15, he's kind of low. I had him a little bit lower than you did, but he's a great villain, and he only comes in at 15 on the list.
I believe I had him as my top ranked animated villain because I had about 5 or 6 in there, and I think he's the best of the bunch.
I think I also had him as my top ranked animated, but I was a little lower. I what I found is I gave a little more credit to like the classic traditional drama horror type villains, and you played up more of the comedy animated stuff.
That's because if you look at me as a person, I am a comedic animated person.
Goo coming in at number 14.
Yes.
Someone who I had much higher than you, sort of speaking to what I was just talking about. Patrick Bateman, played by Christian Bale in 2000's American Psycho.
Yeah, there are definitely some iconic scenes here. But you toe the line of him being the villain, but also kind of the hero. Like if you're an idiot, you think he's the hero.
I think there's a difference between rooting for and thinking they're the hero. You know what I mean? Like we talk about this a little bit with
No.
Thanos
I point at the
sometimes.
screen like he's the hero.
He was at the back end of those iconic villains I was talking about. I think I had him 10th and you had him like 20th. So this was the first one we were rather far apart on. But you can't talk about iconic 2000s villains and not mention Patrick Bateman. And you're
And that's
right.
why he's being mentioned right here.
You're also right into the fact that like he's not he's a pretty bad guy. Obviously,
No,
pretty
he's a
bad guy.
look, Mac. Everyone on this list, bad guy.
But he's a fun bad guy. And so I think that's where it's like, all right, we're kind of rooting for him here.
Yeah, like we're into killing Jared Leto.
Yeah, the minute he gets that business card and he wants to kill that guy,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
understand why. We're like,
Mhm.
all right, we're on his side.
Also, one of the funniest things in movie history is "Feed Me, Stray Cat."
Goo coming in at 13. Mugatu, played by
Mhm.
Will Ferrell in 2001's Zoolander.
This character might be one of the kings of GIFs.
So good. And he plays, I forget the name of the sketch, but he plays a similar character in an SNL sketch with the small cell phone. and
Oh,
Jimmy Fallon's in it.
the Jeffrey salesman.
Yeah, so I think this was like the basis for the Mugatu character and like how he built that character because there's some similar vibes in there, and I'm sure that's how they all build characters, anyways. But Will Ferrell playing this type of character, and this was before Will Ferrell was Will Ferrell.
Mhm.
We talked about it when we reviewed Elf last month. That was his breakout role. That was the first time he actually started.
03 was the turning point.
Yeah, this is 2 years before that, and he had been, a bit role in several movies.
Austin Powers,
Right.
Dick.
This was
Jay and Silent Bob.
This was the first big time release because Zoolander was huge, where he had a shining role in it. And Mugatu is such a good villain.
Superstar.
Goo, after Mugatu, big gap in the points, a pretty clear top dozen, which I think speaks to what I was
Dirty
mentioning
Dozen,
earlier.
baby. Love
Coming
it.
at number 12, Commodus, played by Joaquin Phoenix in 2000's Gladiator.
What an asshole.
Such a son of a bitch.
Yeah.
I mean, Joaquin Phoenix can play anything, he can do anything, but I think he's at his best when he's playing a son of a bitch because he just has the face for it. He really truly just has the son of a bitchin' face that you're looking for when you want the audience to hate someone, and this is the absolute perfect role for that. Q coming in at number 11, Gollum. Gollum portrayed by Andy Serkis in motion capture for the Lord of the Rings movies. He was all three, I believe. Did they come out in back-to-back years? 01, 02, 03?
I think it was 01, 3, and 5.
I think it might have been back-to-back years. I don't know. Either way, this is one of those characters who is a villain, but he's so
He's got the dual personality.
yeah, and
Andy
he's so
Serkis of it
weak
all.
and measly that you never truly threatened by
Mhm.
him because he's around for the whole journey, and that makes him really unique. Like he wants to do really bad stuff, he's just not capable of it, and that's probably the only villain on this list like that.
And I would assume that every high school had someone that they called Smeagol.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Some kid had the poor
Some
unfortunate.
poor kid.
I mean, we had one. We know
Yeah.
exactly the kid we're talking about
We're
right
from the
now.
same high school, so we don't really have like different points of like we don't have different perspectives. We have the same perspective.
I also bumped this up a spot or two just because it was so groundbreaking. Like
Mhm.
Andy Serkis as Gollum and that CGI was fucking incredible. And never really been done before.
And then, I
Goo!
mean, if you wanted to, there's other villains in Lord of the Rings, obviously,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
Um,
Sauron,
yeah.
the role that Hugo Weaving plays, which by the way, we mentioned him at the beginning. Hugo Weaving ended up 20th on our list. He
Yes.
might be the villain MVP of the 2000s. He has, I think it was 4 roles that qualified, and then maybe if you even wanted to count V for Vendetta, you could maybe even argue that he's a fucking bad guy in that.
Yeah, so if you're saying like, "Wait, why isn't this character on the list?" Try not to double up too much.
Yeah, like Sauron's the big bad, but Gollum I
Mhm.
think is
Yeah.
a better villain if that makes
Can you do a
sense.
Gollum
Maybe it doesn't.
voice? Can you do a Schmeagol voice?
My precious.
Oh, that's bad.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good.
Precious.
That's
It's
better.
It's
That's better.
it's kind of Krang like, really.
I can't get to that the back of the throat.
can't get
Yeah.
that part of the
I
voice.
can't do that. I
Aw,
can't really
that's so
do that.
bad.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Mine
Goo!
also sounds more like Gizmo.
Yeah, you get a little Pee Wee Herman thing. You always have a little Pee Wee Herman in all your things.
Go ahead.
Kicking off our top 10, Goo.
Mhm.
Dr. Octavius. What the fuck is his what is his full name?
Alfred Molina.
Doc Ock, played by
Doc
Alfred
Ock.
Molina in Spider-Man 2 from 2004. This was, we gave credit to Ian McKellen for like sort of changing our expectations for comic book movie villains. This was really the first one that we were like, oh, we're like, I guess rooting for. Is he the first one we were rooting for, or like, maybe not rooting for, but felt sorry for, understood why he was doing what he was doing, that type of thing, at least in a comic book movie.
And also, he was one of the first ones. And I mean, you could look at, say, a Jack Nicholson, but one that carries the movie. Like, he is so good in Spider-Man 2
Yeah.
to the point of like a lot of the early aught superhero movies don't really hold up that well. This one does, and it's because of him.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. He does a great job, and I actually think of all the villains they brought back from Spider-Man No Way Home, I thought he was the best one of the 6. So
Also, he's a little Gollum-like because he has those claws that are talking to him.
and
I
you
don't
feel
want to
for
kill
him.
Spider-Man.
This
Yes.
is a result of his wife dying,
Yeah.
So he is where he is.
Mhm.
Goo!
Yes.
All right, yeah. So I think I did have Huff number 3. Another comedic villain here coming at number 9, White Goodman, played by
Yes.
Ben Stiller in 2004's Dodgeball.
So I still would take his character in Heavyweights over this,
I agree.
but also they're the exact same.
Same person, just different movie set 10 years later. Same
Yep,
exact
the
person.
exact same thing. Nobody makes me bleed my own blood.
Yeah.
Joni loves Chachi.
Insanely quotable, and then also when you get like the backstory to his character, it makes him even better. The movie, yeah. One of my all-time. I caught this movie on cable TV a couple weeks ago. It still fucking kills me when the two dodgeball teams first run into each other in the bar, and he's like, "Blade, laser, blazer." Fucking, it's so simple. Kills me every time. It's just he might be the most quotable villain on the list. Although, yeah, coming up in a couple. I forgot about her, Goo. Maybe I'll take that back. Goo!
Yeah.
Getting into the Ocho here. Coming in at number 8, Lord Voldemort, played by Ralph Fiennes, Ralph Fiennes, I think people say it, in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire is where he debuted 2005.
Yeah, he's great. I'm not the biggest pothead, so this might be why I'm not, gushing over this character. I think he's very good, but I prefer other properties.
Yeah, interestingly enough, you actually had him, I think, 1 or 2 spots higher than me, and I'm a bigger pothead than you. He became synonymous with the role, obviously, iconic looking, and the back half of that series is obviously like kept up by the whole Harry versus Voldemort thing. He's in, I think, 4 movies in the maybe 3. I think the last one might come out 2010. But he's in 3 or 4 movies in the 2000s, and he's great in that role. It's hard to not talk about Voldemort. But he actually might be at his best in Goblet of Fire when we first see him. Goo! Unanimous top 7 here. From here on out, we had each of these 7 just in a different order, except for the first 2 we actually agreed upon. It's what makes us similar. It makes us great.
But
Coming
also
in,
what makes us different that makes us great.
Coming in at number 7, the top comedic villain on our list. We both had her number 7, Regina George, played by Rachel McAdams in 2004's Mean Girls.
Yeah, this is just a wonderfully portrayed, written character. All the other characters around that she is bossing around, her mother dealing with that, and then having the clear adversary of Lindsay Lohan is like this movie. You talked about this. Like Mean Girls is such a good movie, and it really is. It's, you have all these other characters, but Regina George was the first one that you had to nail, and they did.
Yeah, and of course, shout out Tina Fey. A lot of this character is because of her writing, but also finding Rachel McAdams before she truly broke out. Like you had the Notebook, I think, the year before, so she was like becoming a megastar. But thinking about Rachel McAdams playing this role now is kind of insane. And I do think she was like 28 playing a high schooler, but that's besides the point. I think why she works as like the number 1 comedic villain is the high school aspect and like the bully feeling so like someone and so true, and as opposed to the other comedic actors, they're a little more farcical. She's a very real character that you go back to high school and you're like, oh, that was our Regina George. Everyone had a character like that.
We did top 10 TV bullies. Did we ever do movie bullies?
That's a good question. It doesn't ring a bell.
She might sneak onto that list.
Does not ring a bell. Yeah, she might be at the top of that fucking tower there.
Either that or everyone in Revenge of the Nerds.
A Goo's Juicy 6-pack of 2000s movie villains. Number 6, Billy the Butcher, played by Daniel Day-Lewis in 2002 Gangs of New York.
Like, I don't love this movie. I love this character, though.
Yep. There's 2 standout roles in this movie, one played by Daniel Day-Lewis, one played by Leonardo DiCaprio, and it's what keeps the movie watchable, because that movie is actually pretty fucking boring, Goo. I don't care for it, but these 2 roles are so good that it's a memorable movie for everyone. Everyone remembers Daniel Day-Lewis as Billy Butcher in this movie, and he's a real son of a bitch, real bad guy, real mean guy.
Absolutely.
Coming in at number 5, Goo, I would argue the most punchable face on the list, William Tavington of the British Army, played by Jason Isaacs in 2000's The Patriot.
The reason why I have him so high is I believe that of all of these characters, of all the villains from this time, this guy is the biggest bastard. This guy is the biggest son of a bitch, the biggest asshole.
Defines bastard for sure.
Like, you could look you could look at the 4 characters ahead of him as like having magnetic personalities or being somewhat charming, if you will. This fella here,
sleazy,
William Tavington, sucks.
I actually think I love the top 5 because they all have different sort of personalities, different type of characters. And to me, at 5, we have the most punchable villain on the list. And oh God, when he gets his comeuppance, it's so satisfying. And some of these villains are so good and they never really get their comeuppance. Others, and we'll see this at number 2 as well, get such an extravagant comeuppance that you're like, fuck, it makes them look even cooler. Goo, coming in at number 4, this might be a little bit of an upset. It was only 1 point behind the 2 in front of it. The Joker, played by Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight from 2008. I had Heath Ledger, I think, 5th. You had him 2nd.
I had him 2nd. I think of all of these characters, he is the most magnetic. He defines what it is to be a comic book movie villain. He is so good in this movie that you don't mind that it's 2.5 hours long because it's so much of him on screen. And then the cat and mouse game with Batman that like it sucks. It sucks more than just this movie that Heath Ledger passed away, but it sucks too that we didn't get more of this character in the sequel.
Well, that's sort of what I was speaking to with Jason Isaacs' character. We never got the true comeuppance for the Joker. And I don't know if no one would have given it to us, but that would have been truly satisfying because it was set up so well in this
Mhm.
movie. And yes, I had him fifth. I did have Isaacs ahead of him, and the three ahead of him on our list was also ahead of him. But I will fully admit, when I started this list, I put him at the top and I said, okay, who do I like more than him? He was the person that like people had to beat. And four did, but there's only one that I would definitively say is better. The two we have ahead of him and the one we just talked about, I have like right in the same tier. If we tiered these, I
Mhm.
have one in his own tier, and then these like three or four in a second tier.
And like I said, I believe that he is the best comic book villain. I would take him, and I know that you go with Thanos over
Yeah.
him, but I think that the Joker in this, just because it's a little more real to life, and I just think that Ledger plays it so well, it's directed so well, it's written so well that you ignore some of the shortcomings in that movie just because of him.
Yeah, it's hard to argue against that. Like if people are making best comic book movie villains, they're starting off the list usually with him. So I'm
Mhm.
not going to argue with that. Goo,
He
goo.
also one more thing. He also like he made it cool for then like like all these other A-list actors to
Mm.
seek out and be the villains in these movies again because obviously like Nicholson did it in 89 and then you had like the Superman movies from the 70s but those were almost more of cash grabs.
Yeah, I
This made
actually
it like
think.
you can win an award doing this.
Yeah, I actually think, and they're not wrong. I still think the movie was great, and I underscore great. Thor: Love and Thunder. I think people were going in thinking that Gore the God Butcher, played by Christian Bale, was gonna have a Heath Ledger Joker type feel in that movie, and he simply didn't. And
Yeah.
I understand that disappointment, but that doesn't take away from the other stuff. But
Yes. Yes.
I digress. Goo! Another tie, second tie on the list, tied for second. We'll go with the one that we both had ranked third. Anton Chigurh, played by Javier Bardem in No Country for Old Men from 2007. To me, he is the scariest villain
Mhm.
of these five that we're talking about traits-wise. To me, looking at him scares the shit out of me. If he was in the same room as me, I would leave the room. I would cross the street. He is terrifying to look at. He is menacing. I want nothing to do with this guy.
Also, he's someone that you look at and you say to yourself, I'm not getting away.
Not getting away, and there's such an element of realism in him because
Yes.
it's set in a very real world. They're like, this fucking guy is gonna kill me and take all the teeth out of my head. It's fucking terrifying.
He's gonna make a rattle.
Goo.
Yeah.
Tied with him at number 2, I think the coolest of these villains.
Yes.
Alonzo Harris, played by Denzel Washington in 2001's Training Day. You had number 4, I had number 2. He's my favorite on the list just because he's so cool.
And then also going into it, you're not expecting him to be the villain.
Yeah, there's a flip in the movie. The first 30 or so minutes, you don't really think he's the villain. And then there's a certain point where you're like, fuck, Ethan Hawke's the good guy. We don't like this guy, but he's so fucking cool that you can't not root for what he's doing. And then, of course, he meets his end in such a fantastic way. The King Kong ain't got shit on me. And then, of course, he eats a bevy of bullets from the Russians. It's just such a badass way to go out. And I think defines how cool of a villain he was.
Yeah. No, I think that our Mount Rushmore I think it's where it should be.
Yeah, I agree with you. Totally agree with you. Even though we both want to punch Jason Isaacs in the face, I do think, even though I had him ahead of Heath Ledger, if you're looking at the cumulative list, it makes more sense for the Joker.
Also, and we should have looked this up ahead of time. 4 and the 2 that are tied for 2 all won Academy Awards for their role.
Oh, that's a good. I don't have those stats in front of me.
We should have done that.
That would be more research, more work on our part. Yeah, that should have been. We'll put that on the producer. Go. Before we get to number ones, we have a list of 22 honorable mentions here. I'll run through them. If you have something to say, stop me.
Okay.
And we're going from a list top to bottom here. The top of the list are the ones that were further away from the 20. When we get down to the bottom, these are the ones that just missed out. You listed someone from Catch Me If You Can, either Frank Abagnale Jr. or Carl Hanratty.
Who are you rooting for?
Goo, I had Sebastian Cain, played by Kevin Bacon in Hollow Man.
He's a real asshole. He's a bad guy.
Bad guy.
He shouldn't have done that.
You had Chick Hicks, voiced by Michael Keaton in Cars. It's a good one.
Oh yeah, Keaton's got that. He's got that nice drawl in the movie
Yeah,
too. But
for sure. For
yeah,
sure.
he just wants to win
Um,
the Piston Cup. That's all he wants to do.
Megatron, voiced by Hugo Weaving in 2007's Transformers. I think he did the next 2 movies as well. Like I said from the top, Hugo Weaving, MVP of the 2000s. Royal Pain / Gwen Grayson, played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead in Sky High.
That's
Really
a good one. That's a good
Underrated
one.
one for sure.
Yeah.
I think I only had her maybe like 24th on my list, but she was worth mention. One that maybe I just missed on here. This is another good one. Randall, voiced by Steve Buscemi from 2001's Monsters Inc.
I like him. The only issue is that I don't think any of them are really like that bad of guys.
True. They're all just doing a job.
Yeah. Look, we all get paid to make people scream.
This one I'm stunned wasn't on your list at all. It was on the back end of mine. The Green Goblin, played by Willem Dafoe in 2002
That's because
Spider-Man.
he's so much better in No Way Home.
Yep, he is. I actually put him and Mary Elizabeth Winstead back to back because they're so cartoonish. And
Yes.
one was a Disney Channel movie, one was a big theatrical release. Vivian, played by Selma Blair in 2001's Legally Blonde.
And you could argue that that her boyfriend is the bad guy or the professor lawyer is the bad guy. But you know, Elle's the hero.
I
Elle's
like
the
the
hero they
inclusion.
all need. Yeah.
Anytime we can talk about Legally Blonde, why not? Ozymandias, played by Matthew Good in 2009's Watchmen. He's not like, I don't even think he's like in the top 2 tiers of comic book movie villains. I just like this movie so much more than most of the people that I had to put him on my list. Drugs in Requiem from a Dream.
Yeah.
Just
I pointed that out
missed
earlier. Yeah, guys, don't do drugs.
Don't do drugs. I think he's a Colonel William Stryker, played by Brian Cox in X2 from 2003.
That's all right.
You don't like him?
I mean, I don't like him, but as like a character, as a bad
That's
guy, he's
pretty
not that
Pretty good. Brian
Yeah.
Cox, good actor. Yzma, played by Eartha Kitt in 2000's The Emperor's New Groove.
does not get enough love. The Emperor's New Groove is one of the funnier Disney movies, great voiceover cast, and Eartha Kitt here puts on a fucking stunning performance.
I don't disagree with you. I like it.
Mhm.
Dolores Umbridge, played by Amelia Staunton in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, 2007. I know you don't know who she is because you're not a pothead, but you've definitely seen images of her and memes
Yes.
and stuff. She's always wearing pink. She's like she's a Karen. She's a Karen in the Harry Potter world, and she's kind of teamed up with Voldemort. She's a real son of a bitch. Terrible woman. Jonathan Crane, the Scarecrow, played by Cillian Murphy from 2005's Batman Begins.
Underused.
Yep, that is the perfect word for him.
I guess Ra's al Ghul should be on here too, but
Yes and no. Yes and no. His plot is definitely the weak point of that movie.
his plot is the villain plot of the movie. And then Scarecrow
Yeah.
is just the pawn in this.
He's the
They
bigger
want
villain.
to poison the water,
Yeah,
Mac.
it's stupid. It's dumb.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say her last name. Leanne Tui?
Tihui?
Sandra Bullock's character in The Blind Side.
Well, we've learned in real life she's a real bad guy.
She is an actual real bad human being. Owen Davian, played by Philip Seymour Hoffman in Mission Impossible 3.
Oh yeah.
He's fucking awesome in this movie. So
Mhm.
good.
Yeah.
So good. Count Dooku, played by Christopher Lee in Attack of the Clones from 2002.
I hate that movie so much.
It is, I think, easily the worst Star Wars movie, and that's coming from someone who fucking despises The Last Jedi. I do think Christopher Lee as Count Dooku is awesome, and this is aided by some more background stuff since, but I love Christopher Lee as Count Dooku.
And then you didn't put Palpatine on here either.
No, Palpatine's fine. He's an evil guy at the end.
What
of the
about
day. What are you
Anakin
gonna
Skywalker? He murders children.
do? He could have included him. Could have counted him.
You could have done it too.
True. I'm not the one bringing him up.
Looks like
Huh?
Mac's okay with it. Looks like Mac's giving a big thumbs up to what he did.
Dude, no. I'm saying Dooku is the most interesting villain from that trilogy, mostly because he's really not that bad of a guy.
No, Mac said that Dooku is the only one that did anything bad, and everyone else, he's A-okay with what they did.
Have you watched the Tales of the Jedi, like the short
No.
15-minute ones?
No.
A couple really good Dooku ones in there.
Okay.
So I recommend that. Dude, Lord Farquaad, voiced by John Lithgow in Shrek.
Yeah, real big personality, real small body.
John Kramer, aka Jigsaw, played by Tobin Bell in the Saw franchise.
I don't think he's that good.
We both had him on our list, but he was so low on both of our lists that he didn't.
I just tossed him on there because he's a bad guy. He had what, 6 movies in the decade, 7 movies
He's
in the
got
decade.
cool ideas, funky ideas,
And like, he's kind of interesting looking, but
Yep.
the bad guy scary stuff from the movie is not him. It's the pig mask, the horse mask, whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah, good enough. Good. We got 3 left here. These were the 3 closest to making the list. The Devil, played by Elizabeth Hurley in 2000's
This list does not count because she's not on it.
I actually had her last on my list, and then I had forgotten, bumped her off. So she was 32 on mine.
What are
you had her?
doing?
I think you had her 20th or something like that.
Has there ever been a sexier devil
Oh no, there never will be.
besides Tim Curry?
Goo, Jack Burns, played by Bobby D. Robert De Niro in Meet the Parents.
Circle of Trust. Jinxie the cat.
By the end, he's really not that bad of a guy. And
Yeah,
you
he
sort of
still kinda
understand
is.
what
Have
he's
you seen
doing
the
the whole time.
sequels? Have you seen Meet the Fockers? Have you seen
have.
Baby Fockers?
Big Streisand guy.
Yeah.
The last one that I had, I think I had him 14th or 15th. You did not have him. Elijah Price, aka Mr. Glass, played by Samuel L. Jackson from 2000's Unbreakable.
Maybe Glass threw off my perception a little bit, and I should have had him on there.
I don't think it's a massive omission, but he's one of those villains. Like once the story of Unbreakable unfolds and you really realize he's a pretty bad guy, you're like, ah. So I think it's partially that movie too, because he's not weighing over you the whole movie. So that's
Okay.
part of it. But I do think he should have been on the list. Drum roll, please. Drums, please. Coming in at number 1, and it's number 1 with a bullet. It was number 1 on Mac's list. It was number 1 on Goo's list. Colonel Hans Landa. Again, I'm just giving him Colonel. He's something in the SS. Hans Landa, played by Christoph Waltz in 2009's Inglourious Bastards, appropriately putting a cherry on top of the decade. This came out at the end of the summer in 2009.
So this might just be a me thing, but I had never seen Christoph Waltz in anything prior.
Same. Agree.
So I had no preconceived notions.
Mhm.
And this movie, this character, there's a couple other scenes without him, but I had never been so tense in so many scenes that he was in.
He is the best character. He's number 1, obviously, for a reason. And why he's number 1 is he's the best on this list at going from having fun, menacing to getting serious, scaring the fuck out of you. You're like, oh, thought we were like kind of having a good time. Turns out we're not. And
I thought we were eating strudel. I thought we were having a fun time.
You have that. You have even the conversation at the very beginning of the movie with the milk farmer.
Oh my God.
And then the scene when he has the shoe talking to Brad Pitt, Gorlami, and he takes her in the side room. I was so scared. I was so terrified.
Yes. Almost every scene that he's in, you're on the edge of your seat being like, is he going to do something real bad?
Right. And you're absolutely right. Part of what plays into that is us not knowing his face in any of the roles he had played before, us just being thrown into the world of Christoph Waltz. And of course, we've seen him now in several other roles, and he's fucking fantastic in all of them. He was just someone that hadn't made his way into a ton of English movies yet. It is similar to the Joker, where he's menacing in a fun way, and he's outright showing that fun, but he's even more devious than the Joker.
That makes the fact that he's enjoying what he's doing makes him more devious.
Au revoir, Shoshana. Fucking what a way to start a movie. That movie's amazing.
And then the way that they end it with him too is also
so satisfying.
Good. It's so satisfying. Good. And also I do think that if we did just top characters in general from the decade, the top 4 would also be on there too.
Yeah, I think Hans Landa would be number 1 for best.
I think he's the best character of the decade.
Yeah, I agree. And you're right. Those other 4, our top 4, would probably at the very least be in the top 10.
So Mac, very quickly, do you have a quick list, or is it enough to run down?
I'll run down it through.
Run down, baby.
Coming in at 19 or 20, whatever you want to call it. Goo's arguing with me here. There's 20 on the list. What do you want me to do? Agent Smith from The Matrix, Papa Doc / The Free World from 8 Mile, At 18, we had Bill from Kill Bill. 17, Brother Derek from Step Brothers. 16, Magneto. 15, Syndrome from The Incredibles. 14, Patrick Bateman. 13, Mugatu from Zoolander. Number 12, Commodus. That is Joaquin Phoenix's character from Gladiator. 11, Gollum from Lord of the Rings. Number 10, Doc Ock. Number 9, White Goodman from Dodgeball. Number 8, Voldemort from the Harry Potter franchise. At number 7, Regina George. Number 6, Billy the Butcher from Gangs of New York. Number 5, William Tavington. That is the son of a bitch British officer played by Jason Isaacs in 2000's The Patriot. Our Mount Rushmore goo, number 4, the Joker, of course, played by Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight. And then tied it to Anton Chigurh, played by Javier Bardem, and Alonzo Harris, played by Denzel Washington. And our number 1 best top number 1 movie villain of the 2000s, Colonel Hans Landa, played by Christoph Waltz from Inglourious Bastards.
Hell of a job by us. I also believe that if we did a top 25 movie villains of all time, there's a good chance that the top 4 would sneak on there.
They would undoubtedly be on that list. Yep. No
I think
doubt.
I think once you hit 5, then you're kind of like, well, maybe
I think
we
our
go
top
elsewhere.
7 would have a chance. I think you would see Regina George maybe at the end of that list.
I think if you really look at it, Regina George might not make the top 25 greatest villains.
No, she
of all
might
time.
not, but I think she would be in consideration for the end of that 25 for sure. Because if you think about it, Goo,
Yeah.
Yes.
if you think about it, what does the 60s have? 1 villain, 70s got like 4, 80s, 90s,
no.
2000s.
There's more than that, and we could look into it,
That's
but
a big list.
that's
that's
a
a-
huge
that's a
list.
good list.
I don't.
You know what?
Yeah,
Maybe Dork does that for their next top 100.
would have to do all of our decades first, so we can say we did it first. Like, isn't that the goal in life to always say, "I'm done first"?
That's it. She just got to be number 1.
It's always a race between me and my wife.
It's weird. You win every time.
I'm undefeated.
Let's get into Max.
And Max Hack could be anything. It could be a boat, and it could also be Max Hacks. Go ahead, give us
Excuse
some
me?
life hacks. Some life hacks. What do you got?
Max Hacks. Wow, I was unprepared for this one. Oh God, what's an issue going on in your life that maybe I could help with here?
You know what I want to try and do soon? I just
What's
learned
that?
this is that when you finish a can of Pringles,
Okay.
if you cut a slit in the side of it,
Yep.
you can put your phone in there, and the can doubles as a speaker.
I thought you were gonna say pocket pussy. Put a sock in it. There's my life hack for the day.
Mike's life hack, guys.
Use your
You get a Pringles
old
can.
Pringles can. Now they come in all shapes and sizes. Maybe the little one will work for a lot
Get
of
one of
you.
those chode ones. Go ahead.
Get a nice white tube sock with a couple red stripes on them. Put that in the can. Pocket pussy. Bang.
Are you adding anything else to it, or are you just going to have that
Well,
crunchy feeling?
No,
going on?
maybe have a couple backup socks just in case things don't go well.
Oh,
after
you
the
can
first one.
interchangeable this. Okay.
Right. Yeah, and then there's nothing to clean there. You just throw the sock out.
So I guess next episode we each have to make what we just talked about. So
All right, I'll
That's-
come with my homework.
that's the rule of Max Hacks.
Yeah, that's
We talk about it and then
another
we show it.
rule.
All right. Where can the people find us, Mac?
You can find us on Twitter and on Instagram at Mac and Goo Podcast. Every other platform, we are Mac ampersand Goo. It's Mac Shift 7 Goo. It includes Facebook, Stitcher, TuneIn, Castbox, Spreaker, Google Play, iHeartRadio.
Radio.
We're on Spotify. More importantly, we're on Apple Podcasts. Get on there, rate, review, subscribe. 5 stars. If you do that, we'll get you a free t-shirt from the folks over at Watertown Sportswear. That's Watertown Sportswear, 34 Mount Auburn Street in Watertown. WatertownSportswear.com, expert screen printing and embroidery.
By the way, keep on writing reviews. I think we've gotten about 7-ish rewritten reviews from you people out there.
And if it's
Great.
a new guy, come claim your review in our DMs. And
If
we'll
you're
get the
new,
shirt.
even if you're a returning reviewer and you want some pens, we have a lot of pens.
We got a lot of pens.
But also don't ask for too many pens.
Yeah, you never know the number. We're going to cut you off.
That's right. tpublic.com. merch. Check us out next week for a news dump. And then maybe we'll continue our movie villains list next week. Maybe we'll find something else to do, and then we'll just push this off. Maybe we'll do a Mac v. Goo. Maybe we'll do a Mac and Goovy Vault. Maybe we'll finish one of the other things that we haven't done in a long time because we keep forgetting to do stuff.
Goo, you know what I happened to get to today?
What's that?
Anyone But You, the 2023 rom-com starring Sydney Sweeney.
Question.
Yeah.
Was it sexy?
It was sexy. It was. It
Was it
was
sexy enough?
It was sexy enough. It was sexy enough. And there's a multitude of sexiness, not just Sydney Sweeney, Glenn Powell, whatever his name. He looked good. They did a really good job, which most rom-coms do, especially like that 2000s feeling, having like 3 or 4 side characters that are funny enough or sexy enough that come into the mix. Goo, I liked the movie. I liked the movie more than I thought I was going to.
Did you see it in theaters?
I did.
Was there anyone else in the theater with you?
One other person.
Did you nudge them and say, "This is pretty sexy"? Did you?
No, I was just hooting and hollering like I was on Arsenio.
Did you buy your seat before or after the other person?
I was first one. I was expecting to have the theater to myself. Yeah.
That stinks. I wish that the other person bought it first, and then you sat right next to them.
I was planning to take my pants off in the theater, but that had to fucking go out the window. And I didn't have my Pringles can with me, so.
All right, Tuesdays or Goose Days?
I use kangaroos.
Kangaroos, bye.
Please flip the cassette over to side B to continue the adventure.
What are you doing over there? I'm not fucking a Pringles can.
Is that sour cream and onion? You fucking bet your ass it is.